World domination. Can Australia become the first nation to be Test, One Day and T20 champions all at once? Fair to say their preparation hasn't exactly been ideal. We get the thoughts of Michael Clarke, Tim Paine and Callum Ferugson. Plus, we check in with Hall of Famer Lisa Sthalekar as Around the Wicket gets ready to head to the Big Apple. Let's go Around the Wicket. Hello and welcome to Around the Wicket. We are on the eve of the T20 World Cup. I'm Neroli Meadows, Callum Ferugson alongside me, and two former Aussie skippers, Michael Clarke and Tim Paine, join us as well. News from the Aussie camp is that 9 players have made it to the West Indies. The others are waiting after the IPL concluded. So they played a warm-up against Namibia yesterday. It was a 7-wicket win with 10 overs to spare. Interestingly, Mitch Marsh decided to bowl first and not give those players who haven't had a lot of time out in the middle more time out in the middle. But overall, Josh Hazlewood was brilliant after a few months off. A couple of power play wickets and maidens as well, if you don't mind, in the T20 form of the game. Mitch Marsh made a successful return to batting despite a bit of a mix-up getting run out. David Warner, 54 not out of 21 balls, and Adam Zampa picked up 3 wickets as well. They didn't have enough players, as I say, only 9 available, so they had assistant coaches out there and even the chairman of selectors, George Bailey, getting amongst it as well. And Mitch Marsh also joked that Brad Hodge could maybe open the batting. It hasn't been the ideal preparation. They've got another warm-up against the West Indies on Friday. Paine, what have you made about the prep so far?
Yeah, I think you touched on it there. It probably hasn't been ideal. I do think, times have changed now with players obviously being over in the IPL and getting lots of training. We've probably only had 3 or 4 who've had consistent cricket, but I think it's a trait of a modern day player now. You've got to adapt. You've got to be ready to play 12 months of the year. They'll get a few practice games. I'm not sure about the quality of our opposition in the first one. But as you said, David Warner in the runs, Josh Hazlewood had some success, Adam Zampa. So some of our key players got some time in the middle. As I said, hasn't been ideal, but it certainly won't be used as an excuse, as the modern day player is now more than comfortable switching formats and getting ready to play really quickly.
Pup, there's a sentiment that I keep on hearing, whether it's you guys here on Around the Wicket or even listening to the likes of Owen Morgan, Nasser Hussain, Mike Atherton over in the UK, and that is the moment that an Aussie player gets back into the green and gold, they always come good. Tell me why. Why is it so that the moment that a Glenn Maxwell puts on those Aussie kits, he suddenly turns into Superman?
Well, we like World Cups for starters, and that's based on success. But I think representing your country is the most special thing you can do. So that's probably why if you're playing domestically, you want to do well for your team. There's no doubt about it. But certainly the way we grew up in Australia, your club, your state, your country, they are significant. They are most important. And yeah, I think, it doesn't matter what you do, any sport, if you're playing for your country, there's a reason to turn up and be ready to play. So, and our game's based on form as well. Good form, bad form. I think for a lot of players that haven't been scoring the runs or taking the wickets that they would like, it can take a couple of days off or a week off, change your scenery, change your team, change of atmosphere, and all of a sudden you're back to your best. So for the guys that haven't been playing or the guys that haven't been performing, you mentioned Maxi. I wouldn't be surprised if he walks in that first game and, he's back to his best.
The idea that Australia could hold all 3 titles for the first time for any nation, World Test champions, ODI champions, T20 champions, if they win this one, what would it mean?
Oh, it'd mean a lot. I mean, it'd be huge justification for the change of coaching eras, going from the JL era into the Andrew McDonald era. There's no doubt about that. I think it'd be a huge feather in the cap for Mitch Marsh. But, I mean, it'd be the first time one country's held all 3. It'd be just an enormous performance. And you'd have to say that, Cricket Australia they've got it right, and it's been a huge step in the right direction, because I think it also shows that there's plenty of longevity about the system that Cricket Australia's been able to put together. It'd be a wonderful moment for Australian cricket. But just touching on Pup's point, I think it's learnt and ingrained in young cricketers in Australia just from watching so much of the Australian team win over a long period of time. You learn that, but then it's the winning mentality you see at domestic level and from the senior players that play for Australia. They bring that back to the domestic level.
So, Mitch Starc, a man who knows how to deliver on the big stage. He had some worrying form at the start of the IPL, but boy, oh boy, did he deliver when it mattered most. Back-to-back player of the match performances in the qualifier against the Sunrisers and then again in the final against the Sunrisers, of course, led by Pat Cummins. That wicket, that delivery in the first over, Michael Clarke, whew, it was special. It was almost bringing back memories of sort of McCullum at the MCG, big moment, big wicket.
Starkey does it. He's done it a number of times. I think I said throughout the IPL that, the fact KKR was still winning without Mitchell Starc at his best was a great sign. And, the bigger the game, the more he'll stand up. I think the big players do that. They perform best when they're under maximum pressure. So, yeah, certainly not surprised with Starkey's, the final series. It's probably player of the finals. And, yeah, another absolute pearler, which he can do. When the ball comes out of his hand, when he's fully fit and he's happy with the world, 145, 150 Ks swinging into a right-hander, or on this occasion, away from a left-hander with that brand new ball, very hard to play.
Paine, you also captain him. The mental fortitude that it takes to have the pressure of that price tag and everyone coming at you throughout that tournament when he was going at 12 runs and over to do what he did in those last two crunch games. What does it say about him mentally?
Yeah, look, I think it's something he's probably struggled with over the years, but I think the older he's got, he's matured around that and realises that with international cricket, at times you're going to get picked apart in the media, but I think Pup nailed it. I think his record in first overs of big games is amazing. He did it at the MCG. We'll never forget that when he knocked over Brendan McCullum. He's done it time and time again. I think at times I've said he's a victim of his own really high standards and people expect absolute brilliance from him every time he walks onto the field. And more often than not, he has produced. So, look, he's a super bowler, 6'7", 145 Ks, late swing. When he's on, he is as good as anyone who's ever played the game of cricket. And he's going to be a huge weapon come this World Cup again.
On the flip side, Travis Head started unbelievably well. He finished his IPL campaign with 3 ducks in 4 innings. Pup, last week Aaron Finch was on Around the Wicket and alluded to the fact that there's a trend of Heady perhaps getting a little tired towards big tournaments or long slogs of cricket. What do you think?
I think it's the way he plays. I think Travis said certainly in the last couple of years has made a conscious effort to be more aggressive, more positive, even in Test cricket. So I think when you're going to play like that, you're going to take more risks. And in this format, 2020, he's opening the batting. He knows how important the first 6 overs are. It's maximum risk, maximum reward. I wouldn't be too concerned about him not making, as many runs as we would like. Again, a duck in this tournament, I'd rather him get a duck than get, a 20-ball 10, to be honest. I think from a team's perspective, when you're batting in that position, get him or get out. So, yeah, I'd be confident he'll walk into the first game of the World Cup and he'll play exactly the same. He'll back himself, see ball, hit ball, and hopefully things go his way. But I think that's a lot to do with this format as well and his role in the team.
I can see that as a bumper sticker. Get him or get out.
It's so true, though, because you do see players who second-guess themselves make the 10 off 15 balls and it hurts the team in the power play. You can't afford that these days.
Well, just on that, Ferg, Owen Morgan talks about accessing the part of your brain that's willing to take risks earlier. And I kind of love that as a sentiment because it's true. It's the bravery mentally as much as the physical capabilities to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see so many different varying conditions batting at the top of the order. And someone like Travis Head, you don't want to cloud his vision or his perception of what's going on. You want him going out there and playing the game that's in front of him. And that's, I think, a real strength of this system that Pat Cummins, Mitch Marsh and Andrew McDonald are fostering in this team. It's go out there, play your way. That's your role in the team. And we're going to back you to the hilt. If you have a couple of misses, keep charging.
And that brings back the balance of taking things on and taking risks, being aggressive with the challenge of international cricket, Paine, because at T20 World Cups, only 14 times in 8 editions has a team reached 200 or more. In this year's IPL alone, it happened 41 times. Obviously, the impact player makes a difference, but how do the players need to adapt and adjust and make sure they don't get too aggressive and too excited heading back into international cricket?
Yeah, well, that's the skill, isn't it? I mean, Travis Head, as we've touched on, he's one. Mitch Marsh is another. Glenn Maxwell's another in the Australian side. They're going to go out and play or try and play the exact same way regardless. That's the culture that they've fostered. As Pup said, get them or get out. What's going to be interesting in the West Indies is when the conditions get tough and the wickets get a bit lower or there's a bit more spin, are we going to have the skill to adapt? And there's going to be players in that lineup that can do that. But it's one of the challenges for the Aussies going into this World Cup. I think when you've got Heady, you've got David Warner, you've got Mitchell Marsh, you've got Maxwell, you'll have one of the all-rounders at 5, Tim David at 6. They all like pace on. They all like going really hard. At some stage, are we going to miss someone like Steve Smith who can come out and adapt to what's in front of him and play on that instinct and use his batting skill, if you like?
That's a really good point. And Paine talking about the Owen Morgan stuff there, it's really interesting that it is hard to access that side of your brain, but it's once you are able to do it, it's then another thing altogether to be able to do it with a cool, calm, collected focus and precision. And that's what so many of this Australian side have got at their disposal, that ability to really be precise whilst they're taking the game on. And we're going to need every bit of it, like Paine said, through the middle order.
And that's what experience brings, isn't it? Been there, done that.
Yeah.
Boys, don't go anywhere because after this short break, we're going to take a closer look. Michael Clarke is going to give us his SWOT analysis of what this Australian side looks like ahead of the World Cup.
Yeah, back batting. I joked with the physios that I won't be running too many twos. Hopefully not too many of those, but it's all the things you've got to tick off, and it's actually nice to just get stuck in, have a bit of a sweat, and the boys are running around. It was great. I'll start bowling hopefully soon. Get through these practice games as a batter, and then we'll ramp it up. But it's one of the beauties of being captain now, mate. I don't have to bowl myself.
So Mitch Marsh opened the batting alongside David Warner in the warm-up. Great to have him with a little bit of humour ahead of the World Cup. Obviously, he's still battling with that hamstring strain to the point that he's still not bowling. But as we continue to chat to Michael Clarke and Tim Paine, as well as Callum Ferugson, Pup, we're looking at your strength, weakness, opportunity and threat analysis. And you think that even if Mitch Marsh isn't bowling, Australia have plenty of options, and that's the strength of this side.
I do, Nez. Excuse me. I think this probably separates us from every other team. The fact that just about everyone in our side can bowl if required. I feel from a captain's point of view, that allows a lot of options. If something doesn't go to plan or someone isn't at their best, then you can quickly make a change. And I think in 2020 cricket, as much as, or probably more than one-day cricket and test cricket, I reckon the more options, the better. And players these days, they're used to bowling one over at a time, one over spells. So whoever Mitch decides to turn to, I think they'll be ready to bowl. So having the specialist 3 quick, specialist frontline spinner in Zampa, but then if they pick one all-rounder in Stoinis or Cameron Green, there's an option. Mitch Marsh, if he can or can't bowl, there's an option. Both Maxwell, Travis Head can bowl. So just about everyone can play a part with the ball, which I think will be a weapon for us.
Even Tim David had a bowl in that warm-up. Yes, they only had 9 players to pick from, but there are options there. And adding to that, even the first pick bowlers, like a Pat Cummins, has been going brilliantly with the bat.
Yeah, he has. And so we bat so deep, and he was in fantastic touch with the bat, coming in with some great cameos. Mitch Starc obviously hits them clean as well. Even Adam Zampa from time to time. So we've got plenty of depth across all skill sets, which is what Pup's talking about, and so important in varying conditions, which we'll see in this World Cup.
The weakness, though, and we've continued to talk about it for weeks on end, is the fact that there's just a lot of guys that haven't played a lot of cricket, Pup.
Yeah, well, I think if we need to find a weak, I like this Australian squad. It's very strong. I don't think we've got too many weaknesses at all. But the one thing that I think, if you could ask for anything more, it would be a bit more cricket for the guys that haven't played and the guys that have maybe some better form leading in. But I think the fact that, they'll be training back at home. We obviously had a practice game where some guys got to go. We've got one more practice game against the West Indies. Even the start of a World Cup campaign, you don't have to be at your best. So I know we can catch up there and make up for it. But if we're looking for a weakness, it's probably compared to a team like, say, India, where they've come from a the IPL, I think that's probably the one thing, that lack of cricket, that could be one of our weaknesses.
And Paine, I'm going to bring in your opportunity here before we hear Michael Clarke's, because it was the name of a man who was just on that list in Nathan Ellis. Tell me more.
Yeah, I think Australia have got a great opportunity. I hope they take it in this World Cup, and that is to pick Nathan Ellis. He would be my third quick. I think he just complements the other guys really well. He's got a different skill set. He comes from a different angle, different height, and I think some variety in the attack is going to be really important to win this World Cup. But I know you're going to ask me straight away, who aren't you playing? So I'll tell you straight off the top, Nez, I'm going to go Mitchell Starc. He's my out-and-out number one quick. I'm picking him. Obviously going with Adam Zampa. And I'm going to decide between Josh Hazlewood and Pat Cummins. I'm going to pick one of them, and I'm going to go with Nathan Ellis's all-round skills, his ability to bowl all through the power play. I think he's slower balls, he's clever. His international record for the opportunity that he's been given is outstanding. And I think now is the right time. The other positive of that is we might get more Test cricket out of Pat and Josh, and that's not to say that they're not the best couple of bowlers in the country. They are outstanding bowlers and will continue to be. I just think Nathan Ellis complements the rest of that tack really, really well.
Wow, Paine always comes in with a different perspective. Michael Clarke, what's your opportunity?
I've gone with Mitchell Marsh. I think it's a great opportunity for him, having the chance to captain this 2020 team at a World Cup campaign. Again, you look at the team or the players around him, we're very strong. Our success at World Cups has been extraordinary. Whether it be, particularly one-day World Cups, but even recently with the T20s, I think this is a wonderful opportunity for Mitch, not only to, lead as a player and make sure he's scoring runs and if he's bowling, taking wickets, but just on his captaincy journey as well. I think he's a great guy. He's certainly got leadership qualities. Who knows what Paddy Cummins is going to do with the one-day captaincy? This could be a chance if Mitch does well and grabs hold of this. In time, he might go on to be the one-day captain as well.
And this is a fascinating space to watch out for, because in a lot of places it could become a liability having multiple captains in the one side. And you've got Pat Cummins, who's just led the Sunrisers in the IPL from last to the final. Is it a liability, or is it an absolute opportunity for these two guys to come together as great mates and lead almost together?
Yeah, I think it can depend a lot on the personalities that we're talking about here. And I actually think that when you've got a personality like Pat Cummins and a personality like Mitch Marsh, it's actually the perfect mechanism, I think, and the perfect working machine, because they're, Pat's able to refresh a little bit, focus on his game, whilst helping, Mitchell Marsh, who's a very good captain in his own right, get into it, get into the nitty-gritty of it, and really take this side to the next frontier, which is another World Cup in the T20 format. I think those two will work perfectly together. They're the right type of characters, and they fit this group so well. We keep hearing this from within the dressing room.
Pat, what is your biggest threat to Australia this World Cup?
I think I mentioned it earlier. I think if you look at the favourites for this World Cup, it's got to be India, just because of the amount of cricket they've played. Their preparation's outstanding. Conditions are different in the Caribbean and America to India, but there's a lot of similarities. So their players will be used to that. The other thing as well, I think India's taken a risk with the squad they've picked, heavily reliant on spin, very different to Australia. But in conditions that I've experienced in the Caribbean, I think spin bowling and how you play spin is going to be a huge part of your success. So, India's the biggest threat for mine in regards to who's going to win this World Cup.
When you talk about preparation, it's interesting because there were 3 Australians in the IPL final and not one of the 15-member India squad in the final, but could end up being a bit of a blessing in disguise. They've got the whole team together in New York, early days, to head into this T20 World Cup. Paine, on the defending champions, England, they've come out, led by Matthew Mott, and said we need to be a little bit more vulnerable. We went too insular in the 50-over World Cup last year. He said we've made a commitment to open up and be more vulnerable as a group. What do you think about this and the fact that they've got Man City psychologists back in the fold to help them out with this?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Obviously, they've read their group, and Matthew Mott's made the move to get the sports psych back in. I think they've worked with before. Clearly, they're a group that likes to share and felt that they weren't doing that in the last World Cup, and it had an effect on them. I mean, Michael, Ferg, myself, we've all played in teams where that stuff can be really effective, and we've played with individuals who love that. You've also got groups and individuals who can't stand that kind of stuff. So again, that's the real guts of leadership and coaching, I guess, is to read your group and adapt your leadership style to your team to get the best out of them. So it can work for individuals, it can work on a team. You've just got to make sure you've got the right group. And clearly they think that is an area that when they are vulnerable and sharing lots of information with each other, they play their best cricket. So it could be great leadership from both of them.
Plenty of pressure.
The other thing, Nez,
shoulders.
reading between the lines of what Matthew Mott is saying, I think he feels like in their last campaign, everyone sort of stuck to themselves because they're worried about their own form. I think he's saying be vulnerable and allow, if you're struggling, go to your teammate or go get a coach or go get someone. Don't think you're alone. And I think every team wants that. Every team wants, look around and know your mate's got your back. So I think what Motty's addressed, there wouldn't be too many teams that don't go through that.
Well, I'd like to wrap up by saying I've got all of your backs, okay? I love you
Thanks,
all.
Nez.
You've done a great job on this Around the Wicket season, and we appreciate looking forward.
Until you get a couple of ducks, and then we'll see about that.
The pressure, the critics are always just around the corner. Yeah, pick up your phone, Paine. Thanks for joining us, Pup and Paine. All right, after this short break, Lisa Sthalekar is going to get things back on track for us on Around the Wicket. Big news next week. Around the Wicket will be coming to you from the Big Apple. Hall of Famer Lisa Sthalekar returns to the team, and we welcome Aussie opener Usman Khawaja as well, plus regulars Michael Clarke and Aaron Finch. Finchy will be there covering the Aussies. Exciting times ahead for Around the Wicket. We bring in Lisa Sthalekar, now 4-time World Cup winner across both forms of the game. And if you're in any doubt of how illustrious her career has been, just check out the background. Lisa, great to have you back on board with the team. What are you most excited about for this World Cup?
Oh, look, I'm excited that cricket's going to the States, really, and it's a chance to kind of showcase what cricket can bring. Obviously, the big game, India versus Pakistan on the 9th of June, will be in New York. So I can't wait to see the Americans ask plenty of questions of how do you actually play this game and what are the rules and regulations.
Can't wait to be there for that one as well. First time that 20 teams are competing in this men's T20 World Cup, which means there's a lot of great stories, and we've got the big teams playing against those associate nations. Yeah. Is there one story that's captured your attention, Lise?
Yeah, look, I love seeing new countries take part in the T20 World Cup. I saw that in the women's when Thailand played in the 2020 edition. So for me, Uganda is certainly a country that I'll be watching. It's their first opportunity. It's their first main senior side across all sports playing in a World Cup. They've got one of the oldest players playing, 43 years of age. They beat Zimbabwe, so Zimbabwe aren't there. So look out for them. They'll bring some entertainment, bit of moves as well on the dance floor, I reckon.
No doubt there. I like USA as well, getting that win over Bangladesh as well. But Lise, for you, who do you think wins the World Cup? There's obviously a spread of teams that are very, very strong.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And I guess we're kind of debating on what the conditions are going to be like, especially in the US. We kind of know what the conditions will be in the West Indies. Look, I think the home nation, West Indies, I think they've come up to 4th in the T20I rankings. They seem to be getting their mojo going in the right direction, getting close to the tournament. And then you can't look past Australia. They seem to turn it on at the right times.
I love the idea of the West Indies as well, because they're hurting after missing the 50-over World Cup last year. Home World Cup, it should be a full celebration. Lise, don't go anywhere, because you're joining us for the short stuff right after this short break. Time to take on the short stuff. Cricket Australia have announced that there will be India A against Australia A heading into the summer. Do you like it?
How good. I love it. I still remember watching Australia A take on all comers when they played in the Benson and Hedges, I think, World Series back then. But Blewett, Hayden, Langer, Paul Rifle playing for Australia A against Australia back then, and England, I think it was wonderful to watch. I still remember Australia going into the final series against Australia A and stealing Paul Rifle from Australia A and then making him 12th man. I mean, seriously, what a robbery that was. But I love the concept.
I absolutely loved it growing up as well. Lisa, who got it right? England demanding that their players come back from the IPL, so the likes of Joss Butler missed out on those finals, or Australia, who said, no, take the time, all the time you need. In fact, don't even worry about the warm-ups.
Yeah, exactly. Don't worry about the warm-ups. I guess time will tell. We'll have to see how both teams actually fare in the World Cup, and no doubt the national boards will kind of figure out what's the right way forward. I like the fact that the Aussie guys were able to see through the tournament. I know that the calendar is really tight, but I think that's the most important thing, that the players get to finish off a tournament that they started.
Also, the fact that there's been two T20s washed out in the UK probably hasn't helped their cause. No. But Jofra Archer has made a comeback. How significant is this for England?
It's huge. I still think he's the most influential player over the next few years in all three formats if they can keep him fit. So this is a huge in for England. It gives them real spark with the new ball and an ability to ruffle some feathers, which I think you need in big tournaments.
And the Ashes around the corner next year in Australia. The MLC lease, Major League Cricket, has gone full List A from the ICC, which is huge news. How significant is it for America and the growth of cricket in the United States?
Yeah, it's massive. When you're trying to create a footprint over in a new territory, you kind of want the format or the competition that you're playing to be recognised globally. And this will enable them to keep growing, and hopefully off the back of the T20 World Cup, they can kind of get a lot of supporters and fans tuning into the MLC. And I think from all reports, they're looking to grow the number of teams as well. So things are tracking in the right direction.
Mitchell Starc has decided or indicated that maybe the ODI format might drop off in his schedule. Looking ahead to the Champions Trophy next year, do you think the Aussies will have a very different outfit?
Look, I don't think it'll be too different. I think you might see in the next 12 months, you might see some younger guys get an opportunity, but not so much in the big tournament. So I think he'll be there and he'll be keen to finish off in a big way.
Lise, thanks for joining us. I'll see you in New York, baby. Let's go.
Can't wait.